Welcome back to Dice to Pixels. Unfortunately, we're currently freezing our butts off at a winter Christmas market selling our nice homemade swag. Please enjoy this pre-recorded episode.
So today we're going to be talking about remakes, remasters, and possibly even some disappointing sequels.
Yeah.
Chad, you're kind of the resident remaster player.
That's an excellent choice of words that you should use, resident. The Resident Evil series is a prime example, is a great example actually of remasters. I feel remakes and remasters done right. The initial 3 Resident Evil games came out on the PS1. The first one especially is known for its very cringeworthy voiceovers and like, no, wait, don't go through that door. Just horrible voice acting. And it also had some live action cinematics that were below B movie.
Yeah, they're not great. Yeah.
But they did. So the first Resident Evil was remade for the GameCube, and it was phenomenal. They got rid of all that live action shit. They completely redid all of the audio, all the dialogue, and gave the game like a visual upgrade like you would not believe.
Yeah.
Controls were still the kind of tank controls where if you hold up, that means you were moving forward and kind of thing. But
they didn't change the viewpoint of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was the visual upgrade it needed, so much so that I'm actually surprised they didn't do Resident Evil 2 back then. But the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes were just dropped a few years back. I don't know specifically what day it was.
I can find out for you.
2019, sorry. January 2019, Resident Evil 2 remake got dropped. And they completely redid the game from like start to finish. Assets, the gameplay they massively improved upon.
Yeah.
They got rid of the tanky controls and more modern being able to like none of this fixed camera angle shit, but you could freely look around the environment and stuff. And
it is what they should have done for Final Fantasy VII. That treatment applied to Final Fantasy VII would have been good instead of the bullshit that they released.
Well, if they did the whole game all in one go, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. Because I like what they've done with the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, it's just cutting it up into
what. We'll get into Final Fantasy VII a little later because it's obviously a topic I want to talk more about. But in the meantime, continue on Resident.
Yeah, so Resident Evil 2, the remake for that was amazing. It like by far and away, it's probably in my top 5, and I'd say maybe even like top 10 games of all time for the remake. I was the Resident Evil 3 remake, while kind of along the same vein, they did the same thing with that they did with 2. They remade the entire thing. But it felt more like DLC for the Resident Evil 2 remake, which is what I think it should have been. It shouldn't have been its own standalone game. It should have been DLC for Resident Evil 2 because it was a much shorter experience. The story, and to be fair, Resident Evil 3 originally wasn't that long of a game anyway.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, that's true to the original game.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But just a lot of it felt kind of rushed, the Resident Evil 3 remake. But yeah, it was good. The Resident Evil 4 remake, I'm kind of still... I haven't played it because I still think Resident Evil 4, the original release, is great and didn't need a remake, to be perfectly honest. I know they've done remasters of it where they brought it out for, I think, the last generation of consoles, but they've upped the definition and all that crap and made it high def and all that fun stuff. But it was, at its core, it was still a great game.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's just one example of something I think done right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Final Fantasy.
Yeah, you've already brought it up.
Remake, which was not in any way, shape, or form a remake, or really even in any way linked to the original game, except for a few of the characters. I mean, very loosely, it follows the same story, kind of, mostly. But honestly, it's just garbage.
They added stuff. They
added everything.
There was a lot of story bits that they added into
95% of it is not original.
Well, some of the set pieces are, but
I agree. The
Yeah.
setting is original-ish, kind of, not really.
well, and
but
even some of the story bits. But they added like the
about 5%.
Sephiroth stuff. Like you
Sure.
don't in the original, you don't see him until much later in the game. Like he's not there even in like the hallucinations that Cloud has.
Yeah.
When like seeing him at the start of the game.
No,
like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like like the original storyline is like 5%, and then they like fluffed it with an
filler.
additional 95% of other stuff,
Mhm.
which is fine, but don't call it a remake. Just make Final Fantasy 47 and just revisit that setting,
Yeah.
right?
I
It
wonder
was
too
weird.
with that too if maybe they were able to add story elements they'd wanted to with the original version and just didn't have the space for them.
Yeah, I mean, probably, and that's fine, but it's still not the same game.
No, it's definitely
in
not.
any appreciable way. Like the characters are the same.
Yeah.
And like that's it. Like it starts the same way, kind of ish, mostly.
Yeah, it does.
The first like the first half hour of the game, I was like, oh, this is a remake, and then it's like, wait a minute, what the? Okay, this is fine, but this was a cut. This 4 hours of gameplay was a cutscene in the original.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but then it's like we're gonna release it in 17 parts and we're gonna charge you $700 for the full set. And it's like that's not a remake. That's just I don't know what the fuck that is, but it's not a remake.
So I never got far in the original game. Was that whole like arena battle thing in the original game?
Arena battle.
You were fighting that house.
I think that was in the original. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But to be fair, the entire first part of that Final Fantasy VII remake, that was like a very small portion of like
the
the game.
first 15 to 20
Yeah.
minutes of the original game.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a bit longer than that, but it's Midgar. It's basically the section of Midgar, because when you get to the end of that and the president's killed or whatever, like all of that I think it's all on not even like the first quarter of the first disc.
Yeah, it's not much of
yeah.
it. Like it's really not much of the original game.
No.
So much so I almost want to go back just to show you, like just go back and like, or you probably watch it on like just footage of like the original Final Fantasy VII. Like it's not a big part of the game.
No, I think I played through most of that part. I couldn't remember it all. So
no, it's like I said, like it's okay as a game. I don't mind it. I played through it and I generally enjoyed it, but the entire time I was like, how fucking long is this game? Like we're still in the first like act of the original game, and then I hit the end of it and it's like, wait, what about the rest? What the fuck? And then they were like, oh no, that's like part 1 of 47. It's like, no, that's not acceptable.
I think they're gonna do a trilogy, because I think this next one that's coming out is going to be
that's what I've heard. Yeah,
this next part, and I think they're fucking with the story too. I think they're changing things in it.
Well, they have to be, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's a trilogy, which is what I've heard, well, then the first game should have covered a third of the story.
Yeah.
It didn't even come fucking close to covering a third of the story. So it's like, no, I don't believe you. Something's like they've already drifted so far from the story. Like the overall beats are there. It's just that there's so much other
filler
crap that they're throwing in. And I say crap not because it's bad. Like I said, I didn't mind it. It's just it's in no way a remake or a remaster or anything of the sort. It's a new Final Fantasy game that happens to be similar in story.
The same could be said about the RE2 remake too, like because it was legit like a complete remake. It followed the same steps, but it was like a remake through and through.
Yeah, but I didn't get the impression from RE2
though.
that they added like all that much in between. Like
no,
like
they didn't.
My understanding was the story was still very much the same.
Yeah.
They redid the gameplay and everything else. Like I didn't have a problem with the fact that they redid the combat mechanics and everything in Final Fantasy 7. I knew they were doing that. That's fine. And I don't hate that they added story. It's just, it's like you sold me a remake that isn't even a fucking 10th of the original game. This is not a goddamn remake.
It's almost in between a remake and a reboot.
A reboot would have been a better thing to call it.
Yeah.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it has the same characters, but it's a different game.
Yeah.
So like that's one that like people like it, and it good. Like I've seen it on many of the best remakes lists, and I'm like, that's not it. It's good, but it's not a remake. It's not even close to a remake.
So if you were to take away the idea of it being a remake, would you consider it a good game then?
It was a good game, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it had all that much replay value. See, the
Yeah, I could
original
see that.
Final Fantasy VII and all Final Fantasies, in my opinion, at least
Mhm.
the ones that I've played, have replayability because, there's the overworld and there's the leveling and everything
Yep.
else. The FF7 remake didn't have any of that
No,
because there's no overworld.
Yeah, that seemed, from watching Chad play it seemed very, very linear.
Yeah, like, and they're all linear in terms of their plot, but they all have like, I'm going to spend 6 weeks doing chocobo racing.
Yes.
There was none of that in
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
because it was just like, nope, we're gonna railroad you through this quest and then you're done. And it's like, that's fine, but that is not it's not a Final Fantasy game in my
Mhm.
opinion, and it's definitely not a remake. So like I enjoyed it, but I have never picked it. I've never even felt a slight tickle to pick it up again.
Yeah.
Which is unique because I've replayed FF7, I've replayed FF1, 3,
Mhm.
6. Like I haven't gotten into the later ones. I've said that before on the podcast. But every Final Fantasy that I've ever played, there's been times where I was like, I should pick that up again. The remake, I have never even had like the slightest twinge of a thought of picking it up again because it's like, cool, I played through the story
Mhm.
and there's nothing left to do.
You wouldn't replay 16.
Well, that may be. I mean,
I'll tell you right now, you wouldn't, because I finished it, and even after finishing it, I'm like, well, I'm done.
does it not have an overworld or anything either? Or?
No.
No.
Yeah.
It has
Okay,
a
yeah.
map, but you
It's-
just jump from place to place from what I could remember.
You can't openly explore.
Okay.
Like it's
yeah.
you have like set kind of areas that you can run through and stuff, but
Then yeah, I probably
once you're done with it, that's it.
then I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
replay it either. Like to me, the Final Fantasy series, one of the mainstays of the series is the overworld, the idea that you can like go off and fight whatever in the woods for an hour to level up, or you can go and I mean, in later games, there was usually the mini games like the chocobo racing and stuff like that. I say later games. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII is considered very early in the series at this point. But yeah, I mean, just the remake was one of those like, okay, so you took all of the things that everybody liked about 7 and just didn't bother with them. So how is this a remake?
The triple triad game in Final Fantasy VIII, the card game was a really fun game too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that's to me that's an example of a remake done very poorly, just because it maintained none of the original charm of the game,
Mhm.
like literally none. Whereas some of the Final Fantasy 1 remakes, even though they've changed things and they've fixed some stuff and they've re-graphicked them and everything else, they're great because fundamentally they're the same game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some like remakes that basically hold the same kind of gameplay appeal. I'm gonna fire off 3 of them right now. The Spyro Reignited trilogy, which has the first 3 original Spyro games that came out for PS1. They got a visual facelift. The gameplay is basically exactly the same,
Mhm.
and it plays true to the original versions. Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy was another one that took the first 3 Crash games, gave them a nice new coat of paint, done some things with the gameplay just to gussy it up a bit. And it's basically the same experience that you had before.
Yeah.
I would argue that because I found it way, way fucking harder. And Crash
Yeah.
Bandicoot 3 was the easiest of all of them, and I struggled even with that one.
To be fair, the first 2 Crash Bandicoots were hard as fuck anyway.
Yeah, well, I made it through I made it all the way through Crash Bandicoot 2. But like even 3 was really hard in the remake.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, well, I wouldn't say really hard. It was just harder than what I remembered it being.
Yeah.
Whereas Spyro, I had the exact same fucking difficulties that
Yeah.
I had as a kid. So,
Yeah. And then the Crash Team Racing
Ugh.
remake, the CTR Nitro Refueled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just, oh man.
Fair
yeah,
enough.
they did. I think that's the best remake that I've ever played because the way that they Well, granted, I know the graphics look better now, but the way that playing it, the way the graphics look now, makes me think of how they looked to me then in the original game.
I got you.
Like, so, yeah.
On the note of graphics, just before we clicked record, we were all shitting on the GTA remakes.
Yeah.
God.
There's a botched graphics overhaul if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, it's the GTA Definitive Edition. Holy crap. So like all they did was increase the resolution of the textures. I don't even know if they really redid the textures. They just like resampled them.
That's basically it. They just put in a program and it just redid it.
Yeah, it seems like just an upscaling, and more importantly, they didn't change any of the models. Like they didn't do anything. They didn't add subdivisions to the models or anything. So like you've got these slightly refined textures on these blocky ass people with heads the wrong size and shape, and oh god, it's bad.
They would have been better just to have released it the way that it looked originally.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it looks like shit.
But like you've been playing the Metal Gear Solid, and they haven't done anything graphically with that, I don't think. And like, yeah, it looks blocky and shitty and heavy as hell for that time, but it doesn't look bad because you know it's supposed to look of the time.
Yeah, it looks appropriate.
Exactly.
Well, and that was the thing, is at the time when it was released, back in, I think it was 97 initially, for a PS1 game, it looked fucking amazing. Like it looks so good graphically.
Yeah, I would agree
at the time. Like, but it's funny because I look at Metal Gear Solid, and it's one of my favorite games ever. Period. Right? Like
it was pretty good.
Yeah, I really dug it. But when they came out with Metal Gear Solid 2, we were talking about this before. Not only did they improve the graphics with the next generation, the PlayStation 2, but they also improved upon the gameplay of it. Whereas in Metal Gear Solid, you were always looking at things from a fixed perspective where you could never look around the map at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could go into first person view mode, but that was it. You could just look around. And then if you're holding your SOCOM pistol, you couldn't like aim via first person. It was always like just from this fixed perspective. So with Metal Gear Solid 2, when they gave you that ability to like aim down the sights from a first person view, it just made shit a lot easier in a game like Metal Gear.
Sure.
But it just added that little bit to the overall experience. So Konami ended up getting, and I think it was Silicon Knights that did the Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes remake, which is a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1 for the GameCube. And they gave it that Metal Gear Solid 2 graphical overhaul. Mm-hmm. But then they also gave it that Metal Gear Solid 2 gameplay where you could actually look through like first person with your guns, with your FAMAS and your SOCOM pistol. And it definitely changed the Metal Gear Solid 1 experience. And it's one of those games where like you're always seeing the original Metal Gear Solid come out as like a re-release. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But why? I don't understand why you never see that Twin Snakes remake come out as like a remaster or a re-release. Because it was one of those things where like it was a better experience for like the first game. In my opinion, anyway, just from the upgrades to the gameplay and all that they incorporated with it.
Sorry, you said the Twin Snakes you hadn't seen a remake because it was remade.
No, it is a remake.
Yeah.
It is a remake, but it hasn't been re-released like in this.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Like re-released for even newer stuff.
It's only ever been on the GameCube, and they've never like re-released it or remastered it or that kind of shit.
I got you.
And I don't understand why. I even don't understand why it's not a part of this Metal Gear Solid Master Collection that just came out.
Because they're going to do another one later.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's a Pong remake?
Oh, yeah.
Several of them.
But one specifically called Pong Quest?
Yeah, that's it's a thing. There was a handful of those. There was one there was a Tetris one and a few others.
They just came out with a Berserk one.
Yeah. They're special. Like they're fine.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
Yes.
It's like why did we need this? So one of the remakes that I think is fucking dumb is the Ocarina of Time remake that they did for the 3DS. I don't know if either of you know about this at all.
I know about it. I just never played it.
It's like you took a You took a great game and tried to shoehorn it onto a fucking Game Boy. It's like, it did not. There are people.
Wasn't it the DS? The 3DS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a Game Boy. I mean, I know it's not technically, but I know there's people that are like, oh, it was fucking great. And it's like, nah, it wasn't. Come on.
It was great because they got to play it on a handheld is really what it is.
Yeah. Like, I think it's one of those, like, if you didn't have the access to play an N64 version of it, it was a way to play Ocarina of Time. And like, I'll play Ocarina of Time to this very day, and it's great.
You can play it on your Switch with the N64 stuff.
Which is better.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not the remake version, it's the original, because it's better.
Yeah.
If the 3DS version was better, they would have released it on the Switch, but it's not. It's worse. So, yeah, I thought that was I get why they did it, but that was a stupid fucking remake.
It's actually good that you brought up the different stores that you can go into with Nintendo to access old games. I really appreciate that, rather than like remaking games again and again and again. It's just releasing what was originally out to give you that experience that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, I'll take this moment real quick to say that so we are filming this on November 12th. It's going to be released December 1st, 2nd, whichever it is. But in the meantime, Super Mario RPG will have been released. And I'm sure I've talked about it on the last episode at least. But Super Mario RPG, best remake ever done. Best game ever made. I can say that without any reservations, guaranteed that my opinion on that will not change in any way, and that everyone in the world will agree that Super Mario RPG is the best remake / game ever released.
Unless it is literal shit.
It would have to be real bad.
I don't agree.
Everyone probably knows at this point that I'm a huge sucker for Super Mario RPG, and I am very excited because I believe is the 14th it's getting released.
The 17th.
17th? Oh, come on. You should have let me hope for the 14th.
But then you would have been even more disappointed on that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have seen, this is obviously at this point, I will have probably actually given legitimate thoughts on it on a different episode, but they've shown trailers, they've shown what they're doing with it. Like, they are doing a proper remake. It's true to the original. It's an overhaul. It looks better. It probably plays smoother. I'm very excited for it.
Oh yeah. That's one that's, I'm looking forward to that one too. Because that was one of those, when it came out back in the day, the fact that Nintendo was teaming up with Square, you know, like the people that did Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy and all that, to make a Super Mario RPG was
big deal.
And it was so good.
It was great.
It had that, even the art style had that kind of, it almost looked like that kind of, that Play-Doh kind of look, like clay fighters,
like
or
stop
whatever.
animation.
Yeah. It had that kind of vibe to it, but the gameplay tropes that you've seen in that, I mean, you've seen in recent, like Sea of Stars has done that with their combat system, where hitting, a button at the time of an attack adds a bonus to the attack.
Yep.
So
it was a great game. And like, I feel like it really took full advantage of the system that it was on. It's a good example of Nintendo at their best. And I'm very excited for it to come out. So I just wanted to mention that, obviously, best remake ever made, because well, I'll be shocked if that isn't actually my opinion when it comes out.
I'll stay on that Nintendo train, and I'll throw out another a reboot.
Wait, let me guess. Metroid.
Yeah, Metroid. Yep. Well, this, because Metroid Zero Mission was initially released on the Game Boy Advance, and that is basically a reboot of the very first Metroid. Yeah. It's the Samus's first mission. You're basically playing the first Metroid, but with gameplay that was more akin to like Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, and just adds a bit more story to it, just to kind of flesh out Samus's character, I guess. Yeah. But that was a really, really good one. I mean, any Metroid game is freaking good except for Other M. Other M sucked.
But, you're a bit of a Metroid junkie.
Yeah, Metroid Prime, they just came out with a remaster on the Switch for Metroid Prime.
That's actually what I thought you were going to talk about.
That is another one. Well, the Zero Mission one was like an actual reboot / remake. They did that. They also did that with the second one, Metroid 2 Samus Returns, was initially released on the Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did a remaster of that, which I think came out on the DS, and it was called Metroid Samus Returns, where they basically redid the game. It was Metroid 2, but they redid it for a new console, and that one was also really good.
Yeah.
But the Metroid Prime remastered. Metroid Prime is one of those games that's, again, it's another one that's in my top 10, and I'd say maybe even top 5 favorite games of all time.
It tends to get pretty good reviews, yeah.
I remember when it was announced how people were like kind of shitting on it. It's like, oh, well, you're doing a first-person Metroid. That's dumb, blah, 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 blah. But then it came out, and it just controlled like a dream. The remaster gives it the twin stick control, so you're using the one stick to look around and all that. And whereas before, if you wanted to do that in Metroid for the GameCube and Metroid Prime, you had to hold like the R trigger, and then you're still using the same stick to look around. It actually has the twin stick control now, and it's just a great game. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I remember when you played through, you were like, "This is fucking amazing."
Yeah. So
shocking amazing.
Hell yeah.
Can I bring up another Nintendo if you're done with that?
Sure.
You sure can.
Legend of Zelda Link to the Past.
You mean the remake of it?
Yes.
Link's Awakening? Or?
No, Link's
Link's
Awakening.
Yeah.
Damn it. I always get those two mixed up in my head for
That's
some
okay.
dumb reason.
I knew what you were talking about because it was on my list. Yeah.
I never played the original, so I would have to get your opinions on it compared to the original.
The original, it basically follows the same path as the original.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a super solid remake because it again, like it did what it was supposed to. It's a clearly different game. It's a different experience, but it's the same game. Like it's the same story. It's the same beats. I liked it. I thought it was great.
I loved the graphical style that they chose to go with. For the remake.
Yeah,
it
that's part
just
of it.
Absolutely delightful. The little chibi look.
It made me think of like those old like the Play School toys.
Yes.
Like that's what it made me think of.
Well, so I think what they were going for, and it's basically the same thing, is I think they wanted it to look like the amiibos or whatever they're called.
Yeah, that would
and
make
it's
sense.
the same basic thing. But and they did great. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
and that's another example of like the gameplay changed, but they kept the fucking story. So it's still it's a remake. Unlike Final Fantasy VII, which was it's just like that's how you do it right, and then that's how you do it wrong.
It still felt fresh. It still felt new.
Yeah.
As someone going in never having played it before, it felt like a brand new game.
Yeah.
And whereas for you guys, it probably hit the nostalgia factor and
absolutely
felt new at the same time.
Have either of you played the Crash Bandicoot, the Crash Insane trilogy?
Yep. We have it.
Thoughts? Because I didn't really play.
Yeah, so that was the one where I said like they were
that's
way
what you were
harder.
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It felt like they bumped the difficulty level on all 3 games, and the first 2 were hard to begin with.
I got you. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the first Crash especially. Fuck, there's missions in that. Like I remember playing back on the PS1 and like gritting my teeth and. And it was the same playing through them on the remaster. It was like, and in my opinion, 3 still felt easier than the other 2.
Well, yeah, but it still definitely was hard.
But they were always difficult, like especially if you're trying to get like the relics for getting through a stage in a certain amount of time because you needed it for like 100% or something like that.
Yeah.
That's always been frustrating. I mean, Christ, even in the latest one, I think it was Crash Bandicoot 4 that they just came out with. Even that it has the same kind of difficulty like as the classic trilogy. So
right. I've asked this before, and I think the answer is not really. Are either of you Pokemon fans?
No, I was never.
I'm told that the Gold and Silver remakes for Pokemon were like absolute gems.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I don't think I ever played them.
I've never played any of them, and I'm afraid to dip my toe in because I have a feeling I'd get sucked right into them.
So I think you might be safe with the Gold and Silver because my recollection of... Because I think I played the original Gold. my recollection was it was a lot more like the original Red and Blue, where it was sort of a discrete game and it wasn't quite so open-ended and like suck you in forever.
Yeah.
So you might be okay with them, but I'm
shot.
not sure if that's just like younger Adrian remembering this and thinking like, I had all the time in the world, so it was fine.
Yeah.
But I might have to check it out because I like the older, like the non 3D Pokemon stuff, the isometric sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for isometric games in general, actually.
I'm a sucker for like 2D retro style games.
Well, that's
like just that
side-scrolling isometric both are
Yeah.
Like just that style of game, just fuck. Because I think it's because you're getting like a finished game.
Well, yeah, it's what I've harped on in the past, where it's like degrees of freedom, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're in the 2D world, whether it's isomorphic or side-scrolling, because your degrees of freedom are low, it's very easy to make a complete and enjoyable game.
Yep.
Your testing space is low, your design space is low, and then as soon as you add 3 dimensions, it starts getting infinitely harder to make it good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And some do it, and do it well, and others try it and fail miserably.
So many fail miserably.
Yeah.
Isometric games remakes that were not very good. Diablo 2 Resurrected and Warcraft 3 Reforged. I heard they weren't so great.
Well,
I never played any of the originals.
Diablo 2 Resurrected, it didn't really change anything gameplay wise.
Mhm.
It was exactly the same experience as like the original Diablo 2. It just looked better. And even that is not really saying much because they just cleaned everything up. Like a lot of the textures and stuff in the Resurrected remake, like it doesn't look that much different. When they announced it, I was expecting like, oh, so they're basically giving this like the modern day Diablo remake treatment, and that's what we're getting. And no, it's not.
I wonder if maybe that's what a lot of people are thinking for both that and for Warcraft 3 when it was being redone, was like they were getting updated everything and it looks
I don't
great.
think that's the problem.
No?
I actually just had to look into this a little bit because I remembered Warcraft 3 Reforged being great.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm
Apparently it was buggy. So because Reforged did the clever thing where there was even a classic graphics mode where you could play like it was essentially the old game. But apparently I don't remember this personally, but apparently there were a lot of bugs. So that's probably what did it. This does say, I'm just reading through this. This does say it removed some features, but I can't remember. I don't remember that. I just remember thinking it was good, but I mean, if it was buggy as shit, that's enough to kill it anyways.
Yeah.
So
I remember it took over the original Warcraft 3 and basically replaced it.
I think that's probably what people were pissed about was that, but they also made it so that like classic players could still play with new players somehow. I forget exactly how that worked. Like they did all of the right things, but from what I'm reading, it was buggy as shit. So, I mean,
yeah,
that'll do it.
Yeah.
If you force people to update from a working client to a non-working client, that'll sink your ship.
Yep.
So that's probably all it really was. But
so Naughty Dog and Sony really decided to cash in on the Last of Us television series. And,
oh god, yeah.
And even like with the Last of Us 2, they remastered the first game.
Yeah, that was one that the remaster nobody asked for.
Like, and it wasn't needed because I mean, The Last of Us was a good looking, like it was a great looking game when it was released.
It wasn't very old.
No,
like, so I mean, I've heard good things about the remaster. People are like, yeah, it was great, but so was the original.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things where, on the one hand, if you're buying a new game, this way you get the newest new game, right? Like if you're buying it for the first time. On the other hand, they probably could have come up with something else to remaster that needed it more.
Yeah.
But at least they didn't fuck it up. Like I haven't heard anything actually negative about it.
No.
Everything I've heard about it is like,
why?
But why?
Yeah. I put it under been there, done that.
Yeah.
EA just released a Dead Space remake of the first Dead Space game. And it looks more or less exactly the same, as far as I can tell. I'm like graphically, I'm sure it's better.
I think it is. I think it's the same game. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just released on Game Pass, So I'm like, I'll probably
Great.
go and give it a go, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I've been there and I've done that.
Yeah, and like to some degree, I'm fine with like it's all about how much effort the studio puts into it, right?
Yeah.
Like for The Last of Us, if it wasn't that much effort to rebuild it, cool, okay, great.
Mhm.
You're people who are just getting into it from the TV show get the latest, freshest graphics and everything else, and they're not going to mind paying the whatever full price for the remaster. So that's fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's just also like, did you have another game that you maybe could have spent that time on
Mhm.
instead of one that was only a few years old?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like personally, I'd rather see the Dead Space remaster, re-release, whatever you want to call it, because it's old enough that I never played the
Right.
original one. So like,
Right.
I don't know if I probably won't enjoy it. It'll probably be incredibly stressful if I
Well,
tried
and-
it, but
Oh yeah, it would be.
And just getting the old one running may or may not
Exactly.
be convenient. Whereas
Yeah.
The Last of Us, my understanding was there wasn't really any problem
Mhm.
running it on any of the more recent stuff. It just, they were like, hey, we're going to do it anyways.
Well, you can play the original Dead Space on an Xbox Series X.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they have it. Well, I have it because I had all the games.
Yeah,
on
because it'll
360,
still play
like,
those games.
yeah.
Yeah. So just really not necessary.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I get it if you're trying, because I think they're trying to do a reboot of that series, and I think they want to try and get interest for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it, right? They're milking it for everything they can
Mhm.
get out of it.
Oh,
And
The Last of Us, yeah.
yeah, sorry, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And hey, go for it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, I don't think they burned any goodwill because they didn't do it badly.
Mhm.
And that's fine. If their priorities are a little weird, whatever, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
So, a lot of the original Final Fantasies, the first 6 of them, all just had pixel perfect remasters that just came out recently
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of milking the shit out of
Like-
things.
So there was one remake for Final Fantasy IV that came out on the DS because I still have it at home, and they made all of the graphics like they gave it that 3D kind of polygon graphical look.
Yeah.
Not that good.
No.
No.
It's hard to do that, right? Like, I mean, Link's Awakening was a great example of it done well.
Mhm.
But it's hard to turn a 2D game into a 3D game and make it good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably what helped though with that is they went with a cutesy, cartoony style versus like if they had tried to do that with the same graphical style that they've done Breath of the Wild and all that stuff with.
Wouldn't have been.
It wouldn't have been as good. No.
Would have been better than Breath of the Wild though.
Yeah, well, speaking of Tears of the Kingdom as a remake of Breath of the Wild, it was whatever. That game is fine.
Like I don't mind when there's like collections that come out on later consoles. The Master Chief collection for Halo.
Or
Right,
Ezio.
I'm all on
Yeah,
board
that's-
with that. Yeah.
Like I dig that.
My stance is as soon as I'm unable to play the original games on the latest version, it's fair game.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, because with Nintendo having the, what is that called? Where they have the old Nintendo and Super Nintendo and GameCube.
They're just
the
apps,
libraries.
the classic.
Yeah, the classic libraries.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't easily do that with PlayStation, and I don't know if Xbox has it or not. I just know it's a
Not
different service.
really.
I know it's an extra paid service with PlayStation, or it was at some point.
Yeah, they have the PlayStation Now
Now
or
or-
whatever.
yeah,
it's called.
like I hate that. Like, I'd like to go back and play those games now because those are games I missed out then. Because there's so many, like Heavenly Sword. I remember when PS3 was coming out and that was the demo they had in all the GameStops or EB Games.
Yeah.
And playing that demo and being like, I want to play this so bad. And I know it's probably not good at all, but there's still that young Sarah that's like, I want to play Heavenly Sword still. And
So here's why I actually think the PlayStation Now, the subscription is a great idea. Is because I've done this more than a few times. Exactly what you're describing. It's like, oh man, I want to play fucking GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And then I play it. I like buy it or whatever, and I fire it up, and I'm like, this is god awful shit.
Which was exactly your reaction when it re-released.
It absolutely was. So with the PlayStation Now, it's like I'll pay for it for a month, And then when I figure out that the thing that I bought it for this month is shit,
Yeah.
I can go and try something else. So I'm actually okay with that. I do think that you should also be able to just easily buy the stuff, but I actually kind of liked the subscription model for that, because I was like, this, like, I know there's going to be, like, at best a 50-50 hit rate for.
So my issue doesn't lie in the having to buy the subscription for it. It's the fact that it's a separate subscription from PS Plus.
Well, PS Plus is a bit of a dumpster fire.
Yes, it is. But like the fact, like, if you could access even a portion of that library with your PS Plus.
Yeah, I feel like with the new service layers,
I think
the top one has access.
It. Yeah. Which is kind of fair, I guess.
It is and it isn't. It's weird.
So I actually don't think PS Now exists anymore, and I think it's just a part of the I think it's a part of one of the PS Plus packages.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I think the highest level now includes what was PS Now. That was my understanding of it. But the highest level is also pretty fucking expensive, if I remember correctly.
It's premium. Premium has the PS Premium gives you access to the classics catalog.
Yeah.
So,
and it's I'm just checking. What is it a month? Do they even say?
Jesus, I just had it up too.
They want to tell me about comparing them, but they don't want to give me a price off the top.
No, of course they
don't. Which is probably means it's too fucking expensive.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was like $130 or something. Oh, there we go.
$189 a year Canadian, $190 a year Canadian.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's not that bad.
Or $22 a month.
Yeah, like that's, you get a bunch for it, and I mean that's not much more expensive than what I pay for Game Pass, although I think Game Pass on the whole is better.
Much better.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree though. Like the PlayStation Now and like the classic stuff, to me, that's stuff that those companies should be making super cheap. Because to me, that's how you sell consoles.
Yeah.
Make it super cheap so that I can go out and buy a PlayStation 5. And regardless of any new games or anything else, I can immediately, like, give me a year free subscription when I buy the console to the PS Now system. And that way I can go out and buy a PS5 right now. I don't need any games for it. And I've already got a back catalog of nostalgia that I can just play.
Yeah.
To me, that's what they should be doing. And I don't see anyone doing that. Like, not even Nintendo, which is the obvious one to do that. Although, in fairness, Nintendo isn't hurting for hardware sales. No. So,
but then, like, because you would tap into an entirely different market. Because when I think of when Chad gets together with his brothers, like Chad and Kirk, they both play a lot of modern games now. But his youngest brother, Adam, he doesn't play as often. So when they do play games, it's all games from your childhood. You guys are tapping into that nostalgia.
Or Mario Golf.
Well,
I mean, that's still
that's a given at this point.
That's kind of a game from our childhood too, just a different version.
That's another remake that was done really well.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a remake, but it's
they're just
reboot.
It's not. No, it's just continuations of a series. It's like the same with Mario Kart.
It's more of a fucking remake than Final Fantasy VII remake was.
It's true, but it's Mario Kart. It's just the same game with a new coat of face, a new coat of paint, and.
Although I would totally go for a remake of the original Mario Golf, like the Game Boy version.
That one was so good.
I would totally go for a remake of that.
Good. I hope that goes on because they have that their Game Boy catalog now as a part of the Switch. I fucking hope that version of Mario Golf ends up on there.
I think that'd be good
because it was so good.
Yeah. So, anyways, to me, offering a year subscription to your like nostalgia back catalog seems like a no-brainer. But I'm guessing they've ran the numbers, and because like it would be one thing if one or two of the companies weren't doing it, but nobody's doing it, and I refuse to believe that nobody's thought of doing it. So presumably they've run the numbers and decided it's not necessary or not profitable or whatever. But I'm like, it would possibly tip the needle for me if they were like, hey, buy a PS5 and you get a year access to our back catalog, even though that's only like $100 value or whatever. That might tip the needle for me to go and buy one.
I think in terms of people that would buy, like, don't normally buy the console, yeah, that could probably tip the scales for a lot of people.
I think it might. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I assume they've done the math and decided not. Hard to say.
Yeah. I'm just curious with math like that, whether or not they're doing it in terms of people that already have a console.
Yeah,
and like
right.
modern gamers versus people that are only interested and have not bought consoles since the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, for sure. Because those are different markets.
Yes.
The other thing that weirds me out is that nobody seems to offer, like, if you buy a new Xbox or a PlayStation or whatever, you should get a 3-month subscription to the premium Game Pass or PlayStation or whatever.
I think you do.
No.
Not the highest level.
I haven't.
No.
No, I haven't seen it with anyone.
I could have sworn I got one. Huh.
Well, because you guys bought with the Xbox. You guys bought
I'm
the
even
pack.
thinking even with my Xbox One that I had bought simply so I could play Tomb Raider.
I mean, they might have done it at some point.
Yeah, but that was last year.
They didn't have anything like that.
I don't remember anything like that. And,
no,
and
the only thing
it's surprising
they had...
to me because like Apple does this when you buy it, or at least did this for a long time. When you bought a new iPhone, you'd get like a year of, it was a year. Now it's like 3 months or whatever of either Apple TV or Apple Music or some of each or whatever. Yep. And they get a lot of conversions from that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if
this is fucking awesome.
I'm wondering if maybe I'm just like mushing together World of Warcraft type stuff because you get the 30 days.
Yeah, I think you might be.
I must be.
Because with the Xbox, you had to have Xbox Live. You never got... You didn't when you bought a console, you didn't get freebies for anything.
Yeah, that
games,
was my recollection.
Some games had little codes that they would give you where you would get like...
That's probably what I'm thinking of because I'm like, I could have swore I remember getting like a thing.
But yeah, like to me, that's crazy that they don't offer any of that. And I get that somebody who's upgrading from a PS3 to a PS4 to a PS5, like they don't need to be sold that. They've already got it. But it's like at the same time, how much does it hurt you to give that person a couple extra months of PS Now or Xbox Game Pass or whatever? I just know that Apple does that and has for a very long time, and they get a lot of conversions out of that.
Because I think we got Apple Arcade when you last upgraded your phone.
Probably.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
they go through cycles. Apple Music, I think you pretty much always get for a few months, but then there's been times where they're like for a while it was buy an Apple TV and get a year of Apple TV free.
Yeah.
And there's been various times where they've done stuff like that. And at the end of it, you're like, oh shit, I don't want to lose access to that, so I better just pay for it.
And it's especially with such a long timeline like that too.
And,
you get
and that's the
so
trick.
Dependent.
The longer it is, the better. The more likely you are to re-up it. Like 1 month isn't good enough. 3's probably in the neighborhood. A year is like a no-brainer. People are, I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Like that's why Sirius XM with new vehicles, they do like 6-month trials. Because they're like, we want you to get... Now, of course, these days, anyone who listens to satellite radio instead of their phone is, I mean, weird.
Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like satellite radio is fine.
No,
it's just
good.
like your phone. Like,
your phone has all of that too.
But yeah. So, anyways, that's always surprised me that they don't include like the nostalgia pack when you buy a new console. Because some people wouldn't use it, and hey, if they're not going to use it, then it doesn't cost you. It literally costs you nothing to offer it. And for people that are going to use it, it's a selling point of the console now. So, whatever. I assume they've done the math, but it's weird to me. We're
getting close.
We spend more time talking about this than I thought. So
this is fine though. But what I was going to say was, if you could take any game from the past and get a remake made of it, what would it be?
That's so hard.
And I only ask this because I know they're doing a remake for Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and they're completely like doing like a complete remake of it. That wouldn't have been my choice, but
all right. So
Ape Escape.
Oh,
yeah.
That's literally the only one I can think of, because the only other two I wouldn't choose from childhood, like younger years, would be Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, and I had those already. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, Ape Escape was fun.
Yeah.
That's a hard one, because I can think of a few different ones that I would like to see. I think it's going to be Commander Keen.
That doesn't surprise me with how much you've talked about that.
It was a really cool game and everything else. Like, part of me would say Mario 1, like Super Mario Brothers, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people would say, well, like Super Mario Wonder basically is that. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. But I would love to see a remake of that. But at the same time, the original holds up.
Yep.
And then there's things like the original GTA. Like the original GTA, top down, like driving cars around the city and stealing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there are similar games, and also the original kind of holds up. Whereas Commander Keen, like, it holds up a little bit, but not that well. I think a remake of it would be badass. Just not 3D. For fuck's sake, not 3D.
So I personally, I want to see the first Metal Gear Solid remade with
it's a good
fresh graphics, like with the gameplay of modern era, where I can look around everything, I can aim my gun and everything.
Yeah, it'd be a good.
I'd really like to see a remake of that. And then the stupid remake, and this one just purely because I'd be interested to see if somebody could actually do it, is take Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which was a pure 2D experience,
and make it 3D.
And make it a 3D.
Oh, that sounds like it would be evil.
It shocks me that you'd be interested in a Castlevania remake.
Well,
you love
I love Symphony of the Night, and like the 2D Castlevanias are some of my favorite games ever. But I was just thinking of that, and it just popped in my head. It's like, fuck, I wonder.
Well, look, in like 3 weeks when AI takes over the world, you'll just be able to have AI make you one.
Oh, there we go.
What do you got?
win. There's a fan remake of Ape Escape.
Oh, cool.
On itch.io. So
there you go. You're sold. I wonder if there's a remake of Commander Keen.
Oh, there's a porno. No.
Oh my god. There's Commander Keen 2000. That's kind of a remake. That's not really a remake though. It's a fan remake. Huh. Maybe I'll check that out.
Well, at least the good thing with that Ape Escape thing is you can just use an Xbox controller and still get the twin stick kind of control stuff. So. Yeah. That was actually cool about Ape Escape when it came out, because the DualShock controller had just dropped for the PlayStation 1, and it utilized the whole twin stick gameplay.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely not in the same way that we do now, but no.
No, but yeah.
But the fact that it did it, it was a big deal, yeah.
So the other thing that I would love a remake of, but I don't know what you do with it, is the original Final Fantasy. Like they've remade it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I would want like a real remake of it, like sort of a reimagining of it.
Mm-hmm.
Same story beats and everything, but like a full 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would end up sucking.
It would end up like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
and it would be sad,
right? Like I think it would break it. So if they could remake it as well as they remade the Link's Awakening, I'd be sold. But what I should do, is create an engine that makes turning isometric games like Final Fantasy into Tunic style games incredibly simple. Because it's voxel, so you could pretty easily take pixel art and convert it to voxel and do subdivision on it, and then you could like automatically ingest the resources.
Cool.
I'm not going to do that, but I should do it.
I'm just like, okay, this is going to be another project.
No, I'm absolutely not going to, but I should.
Well, in like 2 to 3 years, when you're all looking back and checking out this episode, and we're going to remake this one. We're going to remaster it.
Yeah, we 100% will. Yeah. So
I wouldn't be like Max Headroom. Just be like, hey. Welcome back.
Remix. So we'll call it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're off hawking our wares right now as you're watching this, because you're watching it when it came out, right?
Handcrafted goodies.
Right?
You know you are.
You better be.
Don't be naughty.
Ryan.
Or be naughty. I mean, fuck, I don't give a shit. Do whatever the fuck you want.
Tis the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll catch you next week. We'll be back to our normal format. And Sarah says, tell 3 friends.
Yep. Or 4. As a Christmas present.
Do you think they have 4 friends?
Probably.
I don't have 4 friends. I have 2.
Well, Danielle's your friend, so you have 3 friends.
Okay. All right.
And remember, Captain Crunch will destroy your gums.
Oh my God. It'll ruin your whole fucking day.
Totally worth it.
We love you so much. We'll see you next week.
Love you. Bye.
Doodles.